Point d'ordre, Madame la Présidente, s'il vous plaît.
Well, can I get at least? can I at least open the meeting?
Oui, vous pouvez.
A point of order, and I haven't even started yet.
Well, it's concerning the last meeting, that's why.
Go ahead. What is your point of order?
Donc, juste une minute, s'il vous plaît, pour...
1 minute, just to specify that the opposition is quite happy to note that the Minister of Environment is with us this morning. And as you know, last week, the center-left was somewhat uncomfortable, and we were disappointed because the responsibility of our Westminster system and democracy was at stake. Perhaps we understood that the minister may not be here very onward.
Make sure that you're just
Oui, je comprends, c'est vrai, tout à fait. Donc, bref, maintenant...
I understand, but now I'm happy to see she's here. We're going to have a good meeting, and I hope we'll be able to get some substantial answers. Thank you.
I, too, am looking forward to a very good meeting. And on that note, I want to welcome Minister back. She has been with us now for 3 times in as many months, I think. So really grateful for the amount of time that the Minister has spent with us in front of committee. We also have with us the Parliamentary Secretary, Jonathan Wilkinson. Thank you very much for joining us today. We have Daniel Watson, and Daniel is the Parks Canada Agency Chief Executive Officer. Welcome. We also have Stephen Lucas, who's the Deputy Minister of the Department of the Environment. And we have Ron Hallman, who's the President of the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency. And it's nice to see all of your faces. You've been with us quite a bit over the last little while. Really welcome you back and look forward to an excellent meeting. So what I will do then is turn the floor over to the Minister. And you have 10 minutes. Thank you very much.
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Chair, members of the committee, colleagues. I'm happy to be with you here this morning to discuss the main estimates for our department and for Parks Canada and for the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency for 2018-2019. I think that this is the 6th time I've appeared before this committee since I've been minister, and the 3rd time I've appeared over the last 11 weeks. So it's a pleasure to be back before the committee.
I'm joined by Jonathan Wilkinson, my amazing Parliamentary Secretary, Dr. Stephen Lucas, Deputy Minister of Environment and Climate Change Canada, Daniel Watson, Chief Executive Officer of Parks Canada Agency, and Ron Hallman, President of the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency. I want to start by recognizing we're on the traditional territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe peoples. Comme vous le savez tous, aujourd'hui nous célébrons la Journée mondiale.
As you all know, today we're celebrating World Environment Day, and it's also the Canadian Week for Environment. It is also the ideal day to be here with you today, and I'm happy to be here despite my timetable issues. This year, we're celebrating the World Environment Week and Canadian Environment Day. We're trying to fight plastics pollution. This year, we've taken inspiration from the challenges that will be discussed at the G7 meeting in Charlevoix.
See C-57 pass 3rd reading with a unanimous vote in the House of Commons yesterday, despite the Conservative attempt to delay the passage of a bill by deleting a clause at report stage, which Mr. Fass had already convinced the committee to amend. That said, I'm glad to see it moving forward as it was based on the unanimous recommendations of this committee. Je salue également ce comité pour son examen.
I'd also like to congratulate the committee for its study of C-59 and the work it's done to adopt this legislation. You heard 80 witnesses and you looked at more than 150 submissions over 2 months. And the quality and the scope of the amendments shows that the rigor of your examination of this legislation. And I'm happy to say that our government was able to adopt these amendments.
The Conservatives are once again engaging in delay tactics by moving to delete every clause of the Act, not one substantive amendment. Despite these actions, our government will continue to ensure we restore public trust, protect the environment, introduce modern safeguards, advance reconciliation with Indigenous peoples, and ensure that good projects go ahead and resources get to market, because that's what Canadians expect. Quant au budget des dépenses, le 16 avril,
In terms of the main estimates, on April 16th, the departmental plans and the budget were tabled for 2018-2019. After the tabling of this document, the government has marked a key stage in its reform of the main estimates. The main estimates include all of the measures announced in the budget, and it offers important information for parliamentarians to hold a government to account.
Table will take some time to explain to Canadians why, only 11 short weeks ago, they attempted to gut the funding of this portfolio in estimates votes for this fiscal year by reducing the budget by over $625 million. In fact, $627,365, $749. This included an over $320 million cut to Environment and Climate Change Canada, over $15 million cut to Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, and close to $320 million cut to Parks Canada. This would have meant layoffs for public servants and the closure of our national parks. It was the height of irresponsibility, and I want to note it for the record at this meeting on the estimates today. Budget votes are not a game, and Conservative members should know better. Decisions made in this place have real impacts on people's lives and our country, and also our environment. With that, for Environment and Climate Change Canada, the main estimates include $1.5 billion in planned spending. That's an increase of $528.6 million, or a 54% increase over last year's main estimates. They also include a new central vote under the Treasury Board Secretariat for Budget Implementation. For Environment and Climate Change Canada, that central vote today totals $71.4 million. With respect to the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency for 2018 to 2019, the main estimates provide total funding of $33.6 million. With respect to Parks Canada, funding of over $1.4 billion is expected through the 2018-19 main estimates, an increase of $83 million, or 6% when over last year's main estimates. For the Parks Canada Agency, the central vote includes two items: $23.6 million for protecting Canada's nature, parks, and wild spaces, and $1.2 million for supporting Indigenous history, $1.25 million for supporting Indigenous history and heritage. As Minister, my key priority continues to be ensuring that our government provides leadership to take action on climate change. We're 100% committed to reaching our 2030 climate target, and we're taking action including accelerating the phase-out of coal, historic investments in cleaner infrastructure, and putting in place a price on pollution to grow the economy in cleaner ways. Les Canadiens savent que la pollution...
Canadians know that pollution shouldn't be free. They're looking at the costs of droughts and floods and extreme weather conditions and the impact that these have on our health. For 2020, we want climate change. We expect it to cost, rather, $5 million to the economy per year. And not acting is not an option. We have acted to reduce pollution, and we want to achieve our targets by growing our economy at the same time and creating good jobs for the middle class.
Believe climate change is a problem, or real in some cases, and they're missing the boat on the trillions of dollars of economic opportunity and green growth around the world. According to the World Bank, the Paris Agreement will help open up nearly $23 trillion in new opportunities. Let me repeat that, $23 trillion in new opportunities for climate-smart investments in emerging markets between now and 2030. Our climate plan is positioning Canada among the leaders in seizing those opportunities. Canada's clean tech sector is now ranked 4th in the world and 1st in the G20. That's a testimony to Canadian ingenuity, but it also reflects choices our government has made, like putting a price on pollution and making smart support for clean innovation. The Conservatives, sadly, have no plan to support this essential part of our economy. This December, we'll seize the opportunity to advance the implementation of the Paris Agreement at the Conference of the Parties, COP24. COP24 will be pivotal for sustaining momentum on climate action created by Paris. Why? Because if this year's COP can and should land the Paris rulebook, rules about reporting, transparency, markets, and more that help translate ambition into action, they will guard parties' efforts to implement the Paris Agreement, and they will support enhanced ambition in years and decades ahead. Madame la Présidente, nous continuons.
Chair, we're going to continue to protect Canadians and the environment through environmental assessments and by developing and implementing controlled measures such as rules and ongoing reviews of legislation at the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, including recommendations made by this committee.
In response to this committee's report on SEPA later this month, we'll also be implementing the regulations to ban asbestos in Canada, limit toxic emissions for refineries and petrochemical plants, and reduce contaminants in effluent from mining. Our government is also committed to protecting and conserving nature and wildlife. After a decade of Conservative inaction, we're making real progress by listening to scientists and moving quickly to help species recover. We're showing leadership by investing a historic $1.3 billion in Budget 2018 for nature and conservation. Canada is committed to conserving at least 17% of its land and inland waters by 2020, and we're making real progress. At this time, about 10.5% of Canada's land and freshwaters and almost 8% of marine and coastal areas are under some form of protection in all 10 provinces, 3 territories, and 3 oceans. In support of this commitment, we're continuing to advance work on creating new national parks and national marine conservation areas, including the proposed Thaï-Dene-Nene National Park Reserve in the Northwest Territories, the proposed National Park Reserve in the South Okanagan-Similkameen in British Columbia, and Tariotup-Amanga National Marine Conservation Area in Lancaster Sound in Nunavut. Pour poursuivre ce progrès, le vote
To continue this progress, the main estimates include $52.9 million for protecting nature, parks, and species in Canada. This funding will help us as the federal government is protecting and helping to grow species at risk. We're going to focus on priority species and areas to move forward. And I'm happy about the Nature Fund that will partner with not-for-profit organizations in the territories to support provincial and territorial efforts to protect endangered species and to help conserve land and species.
Will help create the clean growth economy necessary for the collective health, prosperity, and security for this generation and Canadians and the next. Thank you for your time today on World Environment Day. I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much. And we're now start with questioning with Mr. Bossio, and I think he's sharing with Mr. Fisher. So I'll give you a 2-minute yellow card, and we'll do it that way.
Great. Okay. Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, as always, thank you so much for being here again. The 3rd time in as many months. It's wonderful to see you. I think you're pretty much an honorary member of the committee now. So you put an emphasis on pricing carbon. Why do you see putting a price on pollution as an essential part of having a serious climate plan?
Thank you very much. And yes, it is my 3rd time in 11 weeks. I'm always happy to be here. After a decade of inaction under the Conservative government, we knew that we needed to take a serious action, that we needed a climate plan that was smart, that was cost-effective, that meant that we reduced our emissions and grew our economy. And that is exactly what we've done. Our climate plan is an across-the-board climate plan. It includes putting a price on pollution. It also includes phasing out coal-fired plants, making historic investments in public transportation, in green infrastructure, investing in clean technologies, and also supporting adaptation. In terms of putting a price on pollution, as everyone knows, including Conservatives who have spoken in favor of this, It is a cost-effective way of creating the incentives for people to reduce their emissions and also foster the innovation we so greatly need. I hope I have the opportunity to talk in more detail about the amazing clean technology companies, made in Canada companies that we see from coast to coast to coast in Alberta, in New Brunswick, in the Arctic, that Canadians are coming up with solutions, and you want that incentive. You want people to choose solutions that will save them money, and that's what pricing on pollution does. It rewards efficiency. It rewards people making decisions to use technologies that will help them save money, do things like insulate their homes, which we know, saves money on your bills. So it's just a really smart thing to do, and it's also critical for any climate plan. The Conservative leader has said that he intends to meet the Paris Agreement target, and they don't have a plan. We have a serious plan that will meet our target, but will also, even more importantly, tackle emissions here, reduce pollution, and grow our economy.
Now, what do you see as the projected emissions reductions as a result of this price on pollution?
Yeah, so this is really important because I think there's been misleading fake news from the Conservative Party. In fact, we put out a study with estimates that said a national price on pollution that meets the federal standard would eliminate 80 to 90 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions. Let's just figure out the equivalent. The equivalent is taking between 23 and 26 million cars off the road or closing 20 coal-fired plants. That's a critical piece in our making sure that Canada meets its emission reduction targets, but also grows a clean economy.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Minister.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, for once again being here. Minister, the previous government never understood the environment file, and they certainly weren't concerned with protecting it. They never saw the economic opportunities that investing in clean technology brings. Minister, I think we're a government that understands these opportunities. We know that by funding innovation, by investing in groundbreaking companies who are solving environmental issues, we will create jobs and take advantage of the generational opportunity to build a strong Canadian economy. And I don't have to tell you, Minister, about companies like CarbonCure in Dartmouth Cole Harbour doing exactly this. Minister, can you please tell us what the government is doing to continue to transform the Canadian economy into a green and prosperous one?
Thank you very much. I think this is the really exciting piece, the opportunity for Canadian companies. Unfortunately, the Conservative, the previous government didn't understand this, that we have amazing Canadian innovators here, that we can take advantage of the $23 trillion economic of opportunity. If you want to grow your economy, you want to create jobs, you need to be investing in these companies. You talked about CarbonCure. CarbonCure is a made in Dartmouth, Nova Scotia company. It captures carbon pollution from industry and then injects it into concrete. It makes stronger, cheaper concrete. I had the great pleasure of being at where? A cement factory in California, where I was wearing my hard hat with the founder, a McGill graduate from Dartmouth, who was showing this technology. He's creating good jobs here in Canada. I was also in Dalhousie, at Dalhousie University, where I met Jeff Dawn. He's a leader in lithium-ion battery research. First researcher ever to partner with who? Tesla Motors. I could go on. We could look at Alberta. I visited a manufacturing facility that creates super efficient net zero homes. This is a company, Landmark Homes. It employs 300 people in Alberta. Also, Shell Canada. We don't always think of our energy companies as being clean innovators, but they're capturing carbon dioxide from an Alberta upgrader and storing it nearly 2 kilometers below the Earth's surface. They are on track to store nearly 1 million tons of carbon a year. Saskatchewan, Foam Lake, Saskatchewan, Milligan Biofuels is turning damaged canola seeds into biodiesel, a cleaner fuel that can power the cars, trucks, and buses in our towns and cities. There are so many examples. Winnipeg, Farmers Edge, a global leader in precision agriculture. Farmers are part of the solution. They're using cutting-edge hardware and software that allows them to waste less energy, save money, and increase their profits.
That was right on the time. All right, Monsieur Godin.
Godin. Thank you, Chair. This is the first time I'm at a committee where the Minister and our Liberal representatives are so partisan. So I think it's quite unfortunate to see that the minister, who has had many problems managing her timetable to answer our questions, and she's made us lose time, and now she's coming here and she's saying that the Conservatives did nothing, that we've lost time, and that we were acting in ill faith. So I can't accept this comment. It's completely not true that the Conservatives get up every morning and want to destroy the planet. The Liberals keep on saying we've done nothing, and it's completely untrue. And I'm going to show you this. We established the greenhouse gas reduction targets, and that's what was established in Paris. So how can the government say that this is coherent? It's not true. Today, I'm happy that it's the National Environment Day, and so we're going to work together to help the environment. And that's what we've always done on this committee. In terms of C-69, there were 100 amendments tabled by the Liberal government, and I think the committee's work was quite rigorous. Now, you say that pollution costs, and it'll cost $5 billion a year, and it's important that we meet you and ask questions about the budget. My question now, you had $328 million more in the budget for your department. And this money, is it enough to reach the targets? Thank you. Yes, I'm very happy to be here today. But I'd like to talking about partisanry. I don't appreciate this. The Conservatives, in a committee meeting, attacked one of our bureaucrats, one of my officials. I'm prepared to apologize as people are talking at the same time.
The point of order.
Madame la Présidente, ici c'est un comité.
Chair, this is a committee where we ask questions, and I would ask the minister to answer our questions and not to deliver her own message.
So I'm going to respond about partisanship. What I don't appreciate is when Conservatives take attack ads, when my public servants that are non-partisan, that they testify before committee. I take huge objection with that. That is partisanship. I'm here to talk about what we were doing on the environment, and unfortunately the previous government didn't do anything. It is great to have a target, but not have a plan. We have a target and we have a plan, and I'm happy to talk
Minister,
about our
please,
plan.
sorry, the point of order is
Demagoguery.
to get back to the question.
Yeah, Madam Chair, we have the minister before us. I have never, in my 12 years here on Parliament Hill, seen such a partisan presentation from a minister. This should be an embarrassment to her. We have never attacked our officials. We've asked tough questions, but never attacked our officials.
So
but
the point,
she, to do the partisan presentation that she, without any class, would she please focus on the questions that are being asked of her?
Thank you very much. I'll see if the minister can bring that round to. I think she was addressing one of the points of
I am
the
happy
comment.
to ask to address questions. I would just ask that anything that my capable public servants say not be used in a Conservative attack ad, as happened in another committee when we were talking about an environmental issue. I just like that reflected on the record. I am very happy to answer questions, and we do have a climate plan. A climate plan isn't just about targets, it's actually having a plan to achieve your targets. We spent a year going coast to coast to coast, working with premiers, working with Indigenous leaders, working with industry to come up with a plan that was made in Canada and that made sense. What did it include? Putting a price on pollution.
Minister, I'm sorry to interrupt again. The last 2 points were not point of order. Your opinions, I accept your opinion. However, the minister is able to answer the questions in whatever way she feels fit. So is there a point of order this time?
Oui, Madame la Présidente, ma question.
Yes, Chair. I would like to remind the minister that I asked a question and I would like her to answer it succinctly because I'm running out of time and I have many other questions.
The point of order.
Once again, the member asked the minister a question. If they would please allow the minister to answer the question and stop interrupting her.
Okay, Minister, you have the floor. Thank you.
So, We do have a climate plan, and we intend to meet the target. And how are we going to do that? As I said, we worked with provinces and territories, Indigenous leaders, industry, and all Canadians. We have a plan that includes putting a price on pollution, includes phasing out coal. It includes having a strategy with respect to vehicles, with respect to...
What's the point of order?
J'accepte sa réponse.
Accept her answer, but I have another question. I'd like to ask another question and wrap that one up.
Présidente, j'aimerais poser la question à la ministre.
Chair, I would like to ask the minister, with another $1 billion, would it be more productive to have an impact on the environment? Is she lacking money with the $500 million this year? Does she need more money? I'm not sure if I understand your question. We have a plan. We have our main estimates, and we said that there's a $520 million additional request. I will ask my officials to answer your question in greater detail. It represents an increase in the low carbon economy fund, and also an investment in freshwater resources, and also Species at Risk Act. How much time do I have left, Chair? Very simple question to the minister. With $4.5 billion and the money you've invested in an old pipeline that was 65 years old, and this is a U.S. company, will this $4.5 billion in investment could have not been more profitable to invest in actions and in technology and innovation to help the environment and sustainable development? We understand that the environment and economy go hand in hand, so we're acting on climate change and the environment, and we're also done a robust environmental assessment of this project.
Might be suggesting that they don't think that the TMX project should go ahead.
You got 14 seconds.
En fait,
we're wondering about the $4.5 billion invest in the United States on the current pipeline. There's nothing concrete that has been done with this money for the environment in Canada.
Okay. Next up, Mr. Boulris.
Oui, merci, Madame.
Boulris. Yes, thank you, Chair. I'd like to thank you, the Minister, for being here with us today. She found some time. It was hard for her to be here, but you're here. And I'd like to ask you a few questions, and I'll try to change the tone a bit of our discussion. I'd like to ask some specific questions, and I would ask for a also specific answer, a short answer, because we have limited time today with you. So, simple question, Minister. The subsidies to oil and gas companies for the 2018 budget, how much will they be? We said that we will have to look at the subsidies. We've done an analysis on the regulations, and the department is doing analysis of other subsidies. And with our G20 partners, we said that we would eliminate these subsidies. I know that's your objective, to eliminate them for 2020, but the question I asked is how much will the subsidies be for oil and gas companies for the 2017-2018 fiscal year? I would like a figure, please. As I said, we're doing an analysis right now. This is very important. I agree with you. We have to make sure that what we're doing makes sense, and the economy and the environment have to go hand in hand. Do you agree, Minister, with the AG, and that your government does not have a clear definition of what a subsidy for fossil fuel is? You're not even able to define what this is, and you have no idea of what figure is in question here. How can you act to eliminate fossil fuels because you're not even sure what you're talking about? We don't need a definition to get a figure. So, of course, we're doing this analysis, and we are doing so based on facts. And yes, it's very important, and I agree with you. This analysis is something that has to be done as a government, and we said we would do it, and we are going to look at what we can do, what else we can do. It's really surprising to see how such analyses and consultations with the Liberals can go on forever. And you said you would cut subsidies to oil and gas companies. You talked about the G20 process and that countries will have an inter-country surveillance system to see what measures will be implemented to see that there's a decline in these subsidies to oil and gas companies. Canada received an invitation from Argentina, and your government did not yet respond to this invitation from Argentina. What do you have to say about that? Argentina did ask us, they sent us an invitation, and we're looking at it, and it's important for everyone to work together. Difficult things are difficult, and we have played a leadership role on this. We're not just doing consultations, as we saw with C-69. We're listening to people, and we are implementing legislation. Talking about figures, there's another aspect for us that disappointed us at the NDP. Canada is the only G7 country that does not have an action plan and a national strategy for the reduction of the use of plastic. Have you made a commitment to a strategy on plastics that is coming up? That's very important, yes. We have to tackle plastic waste. We're talking about having no more. In 25 years, we'll have more plastic waste than fish. So we're playing a leadership role on this file, and I'm working with the Minister of Oceans and Fisheries to establish a charter internationally on plastics. And we also working here at home. We've already announced a microplastics initiative. We've eliminated microplastics, but there's more work to be done. I had a meeting last week with my counterparts, and we're establishing a plan, but we have to do so not only with the provinces and territories, but also with companies. I was very happy to see companies such as Unilever say that producers also have responsibility in this, so working together with them. I'd like to have a date about the federal government's action plan for the reduction of plastic, but if you're saying we're planning a leadership role, how come after Theresa May supported the decision, but the Prime Minister refused to ban plastic straws? But this will have a catastrophic impact on marine life. And every time we have a good idea, you say, no, we're not going to do it. I think we have a lot of good ideas, but we have to work with the provinces and territories. And we have a federation here, I know in Quebec. Quebec understands this very well, and they're really happy that we work with them. So I'm working with the provinces and territories, including Quebec, and also with municipalities. Some municipalities have taken action. Mill Street Brewery said today that it would no longer use plastic straws. So this is an example of how people can take action. I think you should follow this example. Your time's up.
So next we have Mr. Amos sharing with Mr. Aldag, and I'll do the yellow and red cards at 2 minutes. And
Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Minister. We're really happy to have you here today with us. And I'd like to start by thanking you and your team, your officials at Environment Canada, for the hard work you've done on the 2018 budget in terms of conservation. This is historical, and it's very special. We have never seen $1.3 billion over a 4-year period. And this will affect marine areas and land. And I'd like to know what you've done in recent months to move ahead our agenda for conservation in terms of national parks or in other protected areas throughout Canada. Thank you very much. Yes, this is a historical investment, $1.3 billion over 5 years. This was a really big announcement, and I know Canadians are very proud because they want to protect our parks and protected areas. And we also said that we're going to achieve our targets internationally of protecting 10% of our oceans and 17% of our land. So we've already announced a lot of things. We're working on initiatives to protect 2% of land. We're also working with Inuit populations, and we're working with BC. To protect the South Okanagan Park. We're Tides and Dene, Lowlands, Church and Nelson Williams, Magdalen Islands, James Bay, and elsewhere, Scott Islands. There are a lot of opportunities, and we also have to work with the provinces and territories. And there's a lot of interest also with environmentalists. And so this is a great opportunity, not just to do what's important to reach our international targets, but also we have to look at what Canadians want. They want us to protect our environments, our parks. And it's also important in terms of climate change.
Congratulations on focusing also on that private sector aspect. Very, very important to leverage private funds in order to achieve those public interest ends. How are you going to engage in Indigenous peoples in a more extensive manner in the achievement of conservation across Canada?
Well, thank you very much. That's a really important piece. The reconciliation with Indigenous peoples includes, as I've been told many times by Indigenous peoples, reconciliation. This is actually a great example of how we can partner with Indigenous peoples. There was an ICE report, Indigenous report with Indigenous peoples, First Nations, Métis, and Inuit, talking about opportunities. We've also met with the national Indigenous organizations, and we've been having conversations and with Indigenous communities who are particularly interested in the idea of Indigenous protected areas, reimagining how do we protect areas while recognizing the unique circumstances of Indigenous peoples and their Indigenous culture, their history, the role of Indigenous knowledge, and also Indigenous guardians. Having young people, but also Indigenous elders on the land, protecting the land, is a huge opportunity and a huge part of our commitment to reconciliation.
Mr. Altham. Great, thank you, Minister. As you know, last year our committee prepared and published a report on heritage conservation. And so in that report, we had a specific recommendation. It was number 10 that dealt with the Parks Canada National Cost Sharing Program. And the recommendation, if you don't remember it, it said that the federal government should restore the funding level for the cost share program for heritage places to a minimum of $10 million per year. This program, which I had familiarity with, provided excellent support to owners and lessees of national historic sites and heritage facilities not owned by the federal government. We heard from witnesses that talked about how oversubscribed this program is. And in the previous budgets, our government had increased the budget from $1 million to $10 million. It has reverted down to $1 million in this budget. And so I'd like to know your thoughts on what role the federal government you see it playing in the support and preservation of all of Canada's heritage moving forward. And if you could further comment on what that role is and how it's supported by the budget that we have before us today.
Well, thank you very much. And I really want to thank you for all your work advocating and actually practically working to protect National Historic Sites and heritage facilities. I'm very committed to protecting built heritage in Canada. We've made substantial investments in our National Historic Sites. With respect to cost sharing for non-federally owned heritage sites, the grant program has moved back to its previous A-based funding level in this fiscal year, but I'm certainly open to considering the committee's recommendation to move this grant to a permanent $10 million a year level going ahead.
Okay, great, thank you. Well, I was going to ask, maybe I will give your parliamentary secretary a minute to provide a comment on how Budget 2018 will transform the way Canada protects species at risk.
So, what's that? The resources that are being provided under the budget will enable us to be more effective partners with the provinces and territories, partnering with them from a financial perspective, providing resources to create protected areas, which obviously is intimately linked to species at risk protection, and provide us with the internal resources that we need to ensure that we are actually focusing on what is a critical issue from a biodiversity perspective for Canada and for the world.
Hello.
That was succinct.
Well done.
Thank you.
Madam Kuzi.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Minister, it seems like you really don't want to be here this morning, and thank you very much for that super classy opening. Minister, how many deaths are there in Canada every year due to pollution?
I'm very happy to be here. As I say, this is my third time in 12 weeks. I think you do good work, and it's
Answer the question, please. How many deaths are there in Canada each year due to pollution?
We know that pollution worldwide is over 1 million deaths. That's why doing things like phasing out coal is so important.
Minister, on May 25th of this year, you told the House...
Point of order.
And I quote,
point of order. If
the point of
the
order?
member is going to ask a question, then please allow the minister to answer that question.
She answered
That's not really a point.
No, she hadn't finished answering
Okay.
that question.
Madam Chair, she did answer the question.
Let's give the chance to answer and up to the next question.
Thank you very much. Minister, on May 25th of this year, you told the House, and I quote, that almost 800,000 people die each year from pollution. So which number is correct, Minister?
So let me clarify. It's almost 800,000, closer to 1 million probably worldwide that die from pollution. But
okay,
in
then
Canada,
why in the House did you say 800,000 on May 25th?
If you would like me to answer your question, I'm happy. I now have, thank you to my very able Deputy Minister, that we know air pollution has resulted in 14,400 premature deaths, which is $110 billion per year in socioeconomic terms.
Okay, hold on, everybody. If it's going to devolve into this, it's going to be a problem. So if you ask a question, I know she was in the middle of answering, and I know, sometimes you want the question to not be answered anymore because you're running out of time. We're stopped. At the moment, we're stopped. So I think it would be helpful if we don't run out of time and you have a chance, just to give a chance to finish the question. Not if she's running on, I get it, but just let her finish the original question and then we can move on to the next one. I think that will stop the interruptions from the other side of the table. Thank you.
As I said, why is that number different from the 7,700 reported by the Globe and Mail? The number you gave in the House is almost 10 times larger than this number as reported. So how could there be such huge discrepancies with inaccurate facts and hyperbole such as this? How can Canadians take your claims seriously in the need for climate action?
I hope the Canadians take my claims seriously because we do, unlike the previous government, based on science, evidence, and fact. It's 14,400 premature deaths every year in Canada from pollution. That's $110 billion per year in socioeconomic terms, which I know the Conservative Party would be very concerned about. 800,000 is the estimate, and we think it's higher globally.
But it's completely inaccurate. Minister, you speak all the time of concern for future generations in regards to the need to act on this environment. What do you say to all the young families in my riding who no longer have jobs today as a result of your government's inaction and poor policies?
I'd just like to correct the record that my facts are accurate. But we are growing the economy. I'm quite confused that we've added 600,000 jobs to the economy. We're the fastest growing economy in the G7. The previous government had a very poor economic record, was not creating jobs, and also not taking action in the environment. So lose-lose. We're focused on win-win for Canadians, reducing emissions, protecting our environment, growing our economy, creating good jobs.
Minister, can you explain to the committee how it is possible to compost and recycle if you can't afford food to put on the table for your family because you don't have a job?
So most Canadians I talk to actually really care about the environment, that they really want to do right by the environment. They want opportunities to waste less. They want opportunity to save money by having energy efficiency measures, and that's what we're doing. I work with all Canadians. I work with people that don't have a lot of resources so that they can save money through energy efficiency measures. When you look at our social housing investments, that should be at the highest standards, so people that have no money pay less on their hydro bills. That's my focus, and I will continue to do that. We understand the environment and the economy go together.
Minister, do you know what carbon leakage is?
I do know what carbon leakage is, but do you want me to explain it to your side?
No, thank you, Minister. I'll explain it. Carbon leakage is where, from policies, carbon production is too costly and is relocated to areas with less stringent environmental rules and actually leading to higher emissions globally. Out of the top 10 oil-producing countries in the world, Canada is by far ranked the best in terms of environmental performance. If oil and gas are going to be produced in the world, why shouldn't it be done by this country, Canada, with the highest environmental standards?
I agree.
Thank you very much for agreeing with that, Minister. I'm very much appreciated. Minister, I'd like to go back again. How many deaths do you think in Canada are due every year due to pollution?
So I'm not entirely sure I can repeat this again. So that we look at estimates from air pollution from industry, transportation, and other human activities resulting in 14,400 premature deaths, but it's also the economic costs, $110 billion per year socioeconomic terms. When we look at the number of people, when we look at the coal phase out in Ontario, we
Madam
actually
Chair,
had
I'd like to pass my last minute to Mr. Clark.
Days, 53 to 0.
Mr. Clark? Okay,
Oui,
thank you.
je pense que c'est très important, Madame la
I think it's very important, Minister. Well, you're talking about the public's confidence in the Canadian government. And do you think they didn't have confidence in the Conservatives in terms of the environment? And you have done nothing but done demagoguery over the past 5 years. You're an intelligent woman, and we had a platform in 2017, and we had $1.5 billion and also transferred $300 million to Quebec to help it with its plan. And it's no wonder we've been able to reduce greenhouse gases in recent years because we established the plan. We had an eco-trust, and we established targets that you kept in Paris. If we have the public's confidence, how come you did not keep the research that was done by your department? And how come you haven't shown figures how much it'll cost per capita, the carbon tax? You talked about the confidence, the public's confidence, and I would like to know what the cost would be for every Canadian of the carbon tax.
Maybe you can pick that up on the next round of questioning. Okay, next up is Mr. Rogers. And you'll be sharing your time, I think, so I'll give you the yellow and red cards again.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Minister, again for being here. Appreciate the fact that you were able to sit in front of our committee and take questions. I know you have a busy schedule, so I'll get to a couple of points I want to make and then a couple of questions. We know the Conservatives don't care for opinions different from theirs. It's why they refused to hold committee meetings on the 2012 changes to the environmental assessment process. And indeed, they even tried to remove the important role of the Canada, Newfoundland and Labrador Offshore Petroleum Board from the review panel process in the C69 review. This was attempted despite massive objections from Newfoundland and Labradorians and the experts. It was quite shocking to people involved in the oil and gas industry in Newfoundland and Labrador. We also know that prior to tabling Bill 69, unlike the Conservatives with the 2012 changes, that you engaged with stakeholders from a variety of sectors and perspectives for over a year. We know you were engaged thoroughly with industry throughout the entire process, and the same can be said for our other environmental initiatives. Can you comment on the robust consultation process that went into designing Bill C69 and how they've been designed in consultation with industry? And could you also comment on how the competitiveness of the Canadian industry goes into designing the programs and initiatives under your purview?
Thank you very much. I think this is a really important question because when we had to rebuild trust so sorely lost in how we did environmental assessments by the previous government, we need to hear from Canadians because they had said they'd lost trust. And We spend a lot of time with Canadians. We spend a lot of time with industry. We spend a lot of time with provinces and territories. I know the government of Newfoundland very interested in the role of the offshore petroleum boards. We also listen to environmentalists. We listen to all Canadians, and that started from the very beginning. When we came into government, we knew it was important to do what we could to build a more robust system. So we brought in interim principles that increased Indigenous consultation, ensured decisions were made on science, that we looked at the emissions associated with projects. Then we had an expert panel. There were 3 other ministers involved. One other minister had an expert panel. There were 2 committees that were involved. Then so there was a whole process there with thousands of consultations literally across the country. Then we brought this all together in a document, which we then consulted again with. I have sat down with industry many times, including tables that were organized by the Canadian Association of Petroleum Producers with industry to listen to them. I also did the same with environmentalists. I did the same with provinces and territories. And we listened to Indigenous peoples and worked very hard to design something that made sense. We know that competitiveness is hugely important. The goal of one project, one assessment is important, but also ensuring that we can approve projects in a timely manner with a clear process and ensure that good projects go ahead.
Once again, Minister, it's great to be able to ask you questions, and we really appreciate you once again coming to our committee. The proposed Impact Assessment Act opens up new opportunities for Indigenous peoples to participate in the conduct of impact assessments. How would these changes improve the assessment process and meaningful public participation?
Thank you. This is really extraordinarily important. We know that under the previous system, there wasn't proper consultation with Indigenous peoples. As soon as we came in, we made it much more robust through the interim principles. But we've also spent time working with the national Indigenous organizations, but also listening to Indigenous peoples, First Nations, Métis, Inuit peoples from coast to coast to coast. We know that Indigenous peoples are often the most profoundly and directly impacted when a project is built, and they also want the capacity to be involved, to evaluate and assess potential impacts of projects, and also to monitor them. The new Impact Assessment Act, it now provides for meaningful collaboration for Indigenous peoples, including through an early engagement process where we will design with Indigenous peoples a consultation plan, that we will be working in partnership with them, that Indigenous traditional knowledge will be a must-have, not a nice-to-have. And we know that this is a way to develop better relationships, to build better projects, and also in our longer-term goal of reconciliation.
So in 2017, the budget put forward by the Honourable Bill Morneau invested in the establishment and expansion of the Land-Based Guardians program. How will these programs contribute to reconciliation, and how will they help Indigenous youth?
Thank you very much. I had a great opportunity to see Indigenous Guardian Program, an Indigenous Guardian Program in action at Guayhanas. I would encourage everyone to go there if you haven't been there. Seeing Indigenous youth with elders, protecting the land, caring for the land, but also explaining to visitors about the history, Indigenous culture. We now have built this in with other projects that we're moving forward with. Even if you visit the Franklin ships, there's a Guardians program there designed by Inuit for Inuit. I think this is extremely important. It's about learning, healing, and nation building, especially for Indigenous youth. And there's so much that we can be doing and learning from Indigenous peoples.
Thank you.
Mr. Fast.
Well, thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you to the Minister for appearing. I'm glad you changed your mind and are defending the estimates like other ministers have done. I must say I am somewhat disappointed at the adversarial and highly partisan way in which you approached this meeting. Your introductory comments were effectively an attack ad the previous government, when in fact the previous government did a lot for the environment, setting aside an additional 50% parkland in Canada. having great relationships with groups like Ducks Unlimited to expand and protect wetlands, and it goes on and on and on. So you didn't do yourself a service, I will tell you, by going on an attack for a 10-minute presentation, and then when Mr. Boulerice asks a question, you talk about it's important that we all work together. Suddenly there's a kumbaya moment. I think you can do better, Madam Minister. You and I have known each other now for quite a while. I have the greatest of respect for you, but you're going to have difficulty getting your climate change agenda through if, in fact, all it is partisanship and attacks on the other parties in Parliament. We're all members of Parliament here who believe we're doing our job in representing our communities and in promoting a better Canada. I want to go back to a question I asked you a long time ago, which we still don't have an answer to, and that is the carbon tax. The carbon tax in 2022 will be $50, and it'll be right across Canada, every province and territory. We've been asking, what will that mean in terms of cost to the average Canadian family? Can you answer that question today?
I would just like to repeat, I think we work better together. I do not like seeing attack ads using my public servants. And that was a Conservative attack ad using my public servant who was talking about carbon pricing. I take great offense of that, and I think Canadians take great offense.
You know,
in terms of
Minister,
a price on pollution, we've repeated it over and over. In terms of a price on pollution,
if you're going to be partisan
we know that there are 80% of Canadians.
An equivalent response. So.
Do you want an answer, Mr.
I do.
Cost? Okay, so then let's let the minister have the floor. Go ahead.
80% of Canadians live in a jurisdiction where there's a price on pollution through the leadership of the provinces and territories. The federal government has said that we have a backstop, but we are hoping that provinces step up like they have already done. Alberta, Quebec, British Columbia, BC. And what have we seen in those provinces? That they have been able to tackle climate change, but also are the fastest growing economies in the country. The question you're really asking is what happens with the revenues. That is up to the provinces to decide.
Don't tell me the question that I'm asking.
That BC has given the revenues back. They gave the revenues back so people had more money in their pocket while they were also doing what was necessary, which was reducing emissions.
Madam Minister, British Columbia, which is my home province, no longer has a revenue-neutral carbon tax. Every penny of that carbon tax goes into general revenues and is spent on the BC government's political priorities. You know that. There is not a jurisdiction in Canada that has a carbon price or a carbon tax where money is being returned to taxpayers. It's all going into general revenues. Those governments spend it on their priorities. So I will ask you the question again. How much will your carbon tax of $50 per ton cost the average Canadian family?
So I would like to correct that, for example, Alberta returns revenues. And I think you've just pointed out, you've just made my point. My point is that was a decision by the government of British Columbia. It's up to governments to decide what they're going to do with revenues. You know, governments can decide, for example, the government of Saskatchewan could decide that they were going to return it all back in a tax cut. They could reduce their provincial sales tax. They could give a credit. They could give it directly back. That is up to provinces and territories to determine, and that will determine what the cost is.
Minister,
so I can only tell you what is happening now.
The buck stops with your government. You are the Minister of Environment for Canada. You are the one imposing a carbon tax backstop of $50 per ton. So now it's your responsibility to ensure that those revenues, that tax remains revenue neutral. You've simply fobbed this off on the provinces and are saying to them, you do as you wish. I don't want to take personal responsibility for the carbon tax anymore. I believe what you're doing is you're abandoning your responsibility to Canadians to ensure taxes that you raise on greenhouse gas emissions are returned to those very taxpayers. One last question. Minister, in 2022, the carbon tax will be $50. However, it's pretty clear from documents that have been prepared for you by your staff that there's a plan to increase the carbon tax from $50 to $100 to $200 because a $50 per ton carbon tax will not allow you to meet your Paris targets. Can you perhaps brief this committee on the discussions you've had with your officials on increasing the carbon tax from the $50 that it'll be in 2022?
You've got very short, 10
I'm
seconds.
going to pass it on to my parliamentary secretary, Tom.
So as the honourable members knows, that's the product of a conversation between the federal government and the provinces that has not yet happened and will happen as per the Pan-Canadian framework. But I would also say that, you know, the member is from British Columbia, as am I, and the member has been quoted publicly in the press and has said it to me that he actually favors a carbon tax that is revenue neutral. So if in fact the member has a problem with how the province is using the revenues, he should talk to Premier Horgan.
I really appreciate all the good questions. We
Point
have
of
now
order.
We finished that round.
Yeah, Madam Chair.
Yep.
The
Point of
member
order?
for North Vancouver, yes,
Okay.
suggests that he quoted me as being supportive of a revenue carbon tax. I would like him to provide for this committee a transcript of that quote,
Okay.
because it's not what I said.
Fair enough. We'll leave that on the record there. And we will not do, I don't think we need to do it now. I think if there's a disagreement, that information will be provided, and we appreciate if you don't agree with what's been said. Do you want to hear it right now? Well, we're running out of time. Like, in fact, we're out of time. So if he's got it, go ahead then.
Carbon price, Member Fast said that British Columbia, and I quote, did the right thing on carbon pricing.
Okay. You can repeat it, please, and then I have to end the meeting, end this section of the meeting.
Member
Please.
Fast was quoted in the press as saying that on carbon pricing, BC, quote, did the right thing.
Yes, that doesn't mean I support.
You know what?
the
We're into
carbon
debate,
price.
and this portion of the meeting is over. I want to thank the minister very much for appearing before us and answering our questions. And now I think the rest of the staff is going to move up. The deputies and their assistants are going to come up to the table, and we'll carry on our questioning. Thank you so much. just resume, and I'd like to introduce the additional members who are now at the table with us. From a Parks Canada agency, we have Sylvain Michon. Thank you very much for joining us. He's the Chief Financial Officer. And for the Department of the Environment, we have Carol Najam, and she's Assistant Deputy Minister, Corporate Services and Finance Branch. And with the Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency, we now have Christine Lothbaum, and she is Vice President, Policy Development Sector, and she's back, having spent quite a bit of time with us in the last month. All right, I just want to let everybody know we're not doing statements, we're continuing in with the questions, and so we're starting a new round, and we'll start right off just so everybody has your 6 minutes. But I'm going to carve out 10 minutes at the end because we do have to move the estimates. So I need to go through that process, and I need to have a very quick conversation about Thursday's meeting, given situation with when we're going to get the draft report. So let's save out 10 minutes for that. So starting off, who's up first? Amos. Mr. Amos, yours. 6 minutes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you to our hardworking civil servants. Very much appreciate how busy the government's agenda is on environmental and sustainable development law reform. More broadly, what that really means is that you and all of your teams are working overtime to make sure that that we actually do manage to transform this country's laws. I want to focus a bit on the conservation angle that I was pursuing with the Minister. Obviously, we now have new funding to be injected onto the park side, onto the wildlife service side, and into new programming around Indigenous guardians. There's a suite of programs that I imagine are being updated and new strategies are being developed. I'd like to know, I'd like to start by asking, how specifically are we going about the process of encouraging federal-provincial collaboration in conservation? My understanding is that the invitation has been made through federal, provincial, territorial discussions for the provinces and territories to come forward and indicate what opportunities they'd like to pursue. But I wonder, is there not a more proactive role for the federal government to play to identify opportunities where the federal government sees them and to actually pursue very proactive collaboration with the provinces? I can point to, for example, Western Quebec, where there are conservation opportunities, but I think that there's a leadership role for the federal government to play.
Perhaps I can start and then turn to my colleague Daniel to go further. The Government of Canada has been working with provinces and territories, Indigenous peoples, and other stakeholders over the course of the past 18 months to almost 2 years on a process called Pathway to Target 1, the terrestrial target under the Convention on Biological Diversity of conserving or protecting 17% of our landmass by 2020. Minister McKenna and Minister Phillips of Alberta launched that process in December 2016, and in February 2017 met with provincial and territorial ministers responsible for wildlife conservation and biodiversity to engage in that broader work. There was work by an external panel, the National Advisory Panel, that provided advice, as well as the Minister had mentioned the Indigenous Circle of Experts in regard in particular to Indigenous protected and conserved areas. And that work has supported provinces and territories, as well as Indigenous groups and others looking at opportunities across the country, including on our side, national wildlife areas and migratory bird sanctuaries, and Daniel can speak to national parks in a second. What I would say is, given the investment in the budget in February 2018 of $1.3 billion in conservation, in particular, the government's commitment to establish a nature fund of $1 billion, of which the government would invest $500 million. This creates a platform for the government to work with partners, including provinces and territories, industry, philanthropic foundations, and Indigenous groups, to establish those areas in the spirit of partnership.
Okay, and I'd like to push this a bit further, though, because I'd like to know specifically what is the state of the conversation with the Government of Quebec around a joint conservation agenda, or is there actually something, a dialogue around specific specific areas of Quebec that might be of interest to that province? Has there been feedback from them? I doubt it's on the park side, but maybe it is. But everyone who's followed conservation in Quebec has known that for many, many years, with the exception of St. Lawrence Saguenay Marine Protected Area, there hasn't been a lot achieved. And I think that this is the moment where we've really got to get these two governments working together.
So I'll make a comment and then turn to my colleague Daniel as well. All provinces and territories engaged in the conversation. Daniel and I co-chaired with our colleague from Alberta, Deputy Minister's call on this just last week. The Government of Quebec invested in the recent budget in conservation and protected areas. Discussions are underway at the officials level. And I would just point out recently in Alberta, there was a significant protected areas commitment made in the Birch River area in the boreal forest, which involved work through Nature Conservancy, but the Government of Alberta as well.
Just very quickly, I'd add that obviously, if we're going to get the types of outcomes we want in protecting species at risk and others, the interconnectivity is critical. So of the investments that are available here, the science component will be critical. It will allow us to work better with all jurisdictions. And I think one of the other pieces that has been a big plus is that not only are we working with provinces and territories, but also municipalities and Indigenous governments as well. And I think it brings together a more coherent program than we've been able to see before, just given all the different players that are being brought to the same table.
Okay. Very quickly, what is the status of the development of the Indigenous Guardians program? What successes have been achieved? My understanding is that things aren't moving as quickly as some proponents would like. So could you please update on that?
These are obviously excellent programs. There's a long history with similar things that the Minister spoke to earlier. We do expect to see people on the ground this year in a number of communities as a result of those investments, and we expect those to have a particularly strong impact on Indigenous youth, Inuit and Métis in some parts of the country, and First Nations and others. And again, we expect to see people on the ground in very short order this season.
Okay. My last question is very... I'm out of time.
Sorry about that. Good questioning, out of time. Mr. Fast.
Mr. Lucas, a number of agencies, including the UN and I believe the Auditor General, have noted that Canada right now is not on track to meet its Paris Agreement targets. It's short somewhere around, I believe it's around 90 megatons of greenhouse gas emissions. Can you confirm today exactly how big that shortfall is?
Canada reports transparently each year, every second year, to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and in the alternate years in our public reporting in Canada on our emission forecasts and the results of the inventory on actual observations. In the most recent report to the UN in December 2017, it reported the single biggest drop in Canadian history of emissions, 232 megatons, which brought the total to about 583 megatons. That did not include a number of areas that weren't modeled, which has been our approach based on expert advice. That included in the land use. Forgive me.
Yeah, I want to interrupt you, but you haven't answered my question, which is, how far short are we on our Paris Agreement goals?
But the response I was giving is the government has articulated a plan to achieve the target. That includes both measures modeled in the report to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, but also other measures that have not been modeled, including public transit, areas of innovation technology development, and in particular in the land use and land use change sector in terms of stored carbon in the forest and agricultural lands. And it's with
So what's the shortfall?
What I'm conveying is that in the model portion, it brings us to 583 megatons, and we believe through these areas that have not been modeled.
Areas that have not been modeled, is that your way of saying you have a shortfall, but you don't want to actually admit there's a shortfall?
No, I believe that what it represents in areas, for example, land use and land use change, the international rules for that are still being developed. Canada has a very robust system of tracking stored carbon in forests and in agricultural lands, which we believe, until those international rules are secured, we will not report in our.
So what's the shortfall?
As I said, this difference between.
Stephen, this is not looking good on you. You have an answer, but you won't give it to this committee. I really find that troubling. You have an answer to this answer.
Madam Chair, what I would like to do is just.
He's trying to explain his answer. Go ahead,
I was trying to explain my answer. The target in 2030 is 517 megatons. We believe that we're on a path to achieve that target through the measures in the Pan-Canadian Framework, which include those modeled and reported to the UNFCCC, and in that same report and in other public documents, areas that we have not modeled because we're taking a conservative, expert-driven set of assumptions to that modeling.
But you know, both the
public transit,
both the United Nations and the Auditor General have noted that, in fact, the Pan-Canadian Framework on Climate Change and all the programs that are within it will not meet the Paris Agreement targets. Correct?
The Commissioner on Environment and Sustainable Development's report was focused on previous plans that looked at targets in 2020. They did not audit. She did not audit the 2030 target.
Okay.
We look forward to that assessment.
Okay, let me ask a different question. What role will carbon credits play, international carbon credits play, in achieving Canada's greenhouse gas emissions?
The Pan-Canadian Framework did indicate that internationally traded mitigation opportunities, which is the way they're described in the Paris Agreement, can represent a contribution to that. At present, that article in the Paris Agreement, Article 6, is being continued to be negotiated in terms of the rules governing it. The agreement through the Pan-Canadian Framework that the provinces and territories agreed to recognize that as a potential area of contribution, as well as measures crossing economic sectors in this country.
So just to be clear, when you're talking about carbon credits and trying to negotiate something that's going to allow Canada to purchase carbon credits, this is about Canada making up any shortfall in reducing its greenhouse gas emissions by sending money to other countries or other jurisdictions to purchase credits so that Canada can meet its targets, and that money then goes to other jurisdictions to be spent on that jurisdiction's priorities. Is that correct?
What I did describe, Madam Chair, was the Pan-Canadian Framework Plan looks at a variety of measures touching all sectors of the economy across all regions. The modeling of that shows a reduction in 2030 of 232 megatons relative to the current baseline. In addition, there's a number of areas that have not been modeled, including the investments in public transit, which are anticipated to reduce emissions, changes in technology through innovation, as well as stored carbon in forests and through agricultural soils. And so the Pan-Canadian Framework really outlines a plan to achieve the target domestically.
Thank you.
We're out of time on that round. Mr. Boulouris.
Merci.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Last year, or a couple years ago, I had an exceptional opportunity to visit national parks in Canada, one in Sable Island out in Nova Scotia, and it's a wonderful and unique place. And it's the only place where there are wild horses in Canada. And the Minister of Environment authorized offshore drilling near Sable Island. And I'd like to know if you have conducted an impact analysis of this drilling on the ecosystem of this national park. I am not aware that the minister would have an authority to approve drilling offshore of this park. So I'm not aware either of any drilling authorization within the park either. I'm almost sure that there's nothing that could be verified on that unless I'm mistaken about any particular detail. But there is no drilling that is being done within the park. No, obviously not inside the park, but near the island and near the park. And British Petroleum was given an authorization, and a lot of people would like to protect this park. I'd like you to look into this and come back with us and give us relevant documents. But I can guarantee you that I'm not aware of any authorizations that were granted by the minister for offshore drilling near this park. Perfect. Thank you. In terms of the question of whether we're going to reach our targets or not for greenhouse gas reductions that we presented at the Paris Agreement, it seems that there's wonderful an unanimous approach. And everyone says we're late, we're running late, and we're not going to be able to reach the targets. That was the opinion of the Environment Commissioner last year. They said we're going to miss our 2030 targets, our 2020 targets, and we'll also miss the 2030 ones if we don't make changes. And Canada won't be able to meet its commitments, and the United Nations also said that this will not be the case. But unfortunately, the minister seems to be quite alone in her corner, saying that we're going to meet our objectives. I know you can't speak for them, but what do you tell people that say that we're going to miss our objectives and not meet our commitments? In 2016, the government worked very hard to develop with provinces and territories and Indigenous peoples, companies, civil society, and young people throughout the country, and Canadians in general. We worked hard to develop a plan to reach our Paris targets for 2030, in addition to growing the economy. We want to grow the resiliency of our country to climate change. So with the measures in this plan, which was published in December 2016, the United Nations and Canadians are able to look at this plan every year, and there's more transparency now in terms of the measures and the effect that it will have in 2030. There are some measures that have not been modeled yet because regulations are still being established for these measures, such as land use for carbon stocking in forests, storage rather in forests, in agricultural lands as well. In addition to the increase in the reduction of greenhouse gases, we're also looking at public transportation, which in Quebec is a big priority. Thank you. Unfortunately, the Liberal government cut the tax credit for public transportation. I know you're doing one thing on one hand and then they're doing something opposite on the other hand. We've just now become the collective owner of a pipeline, which was a big surprise for many people. We don't know how much it'll cost us, $4.5 billion just to buy the asset, and then perhaps another several other billions to expand it. So we're going to export oil, and it's really hard to clean up if there's an oil spill. And we're investing in a fossil fuel. That's an equivalent of 3 million additional cars on the road. So we're already going to miss our targets, and if we make a decision like this one, it goes in the entirely opposite direction. The government did an evaluation of greenhouse gases related to this pipeline expansion project. It looked at upstream production of oil. And these emissions have been included in the forecasts of the National Energy Board and in the modelization of our targets. Thank you.
To get the answer, thank you. Next up, Mr. Aldag.
To start off with a question with for Mr. Watson. It's building a bit on where my colleague Mr. Amos was going on how we're moving forward to meeting the 2020 targets, particularly looking at the 17% terrestrial. And I'm interested within Parks Canada. We heard great examples of work that's underway right now for creation of parks when our minister was here, and lots of really, really exciting work that's happening for both terrestrial and marine. I wonder if you could provide a comment for us, though, about more on the front end of the intake process. So we know that there are still some zones that in Canada that are not represented and where target areas have not yet been identified. And I'm wondering that if you have the capacity for the science or the research, the discussions for the planning of the next round of intakes through the work or the budget that you've been allocated here.
Sure. Thank you very much for the question. In fact, the latest budget will add nearly 200 FTEs into the science component of Parks Canada, which is a very significant contribution. That will play out in a number of very important ways. When it comes to protection, it's not just the number of square kilometers, obviously, that are important, but it's where those square kilometers are and what they protect. And you can only really understand that with really solid science. And the other part that's important, I think everybody's learned over the years who's been in this business, what is up against that can either help or limit the degree of protection you do inside your own areas. So with this increased science, we will be better able to talk to First Nations, better able to talk to Métis, better able to talk to Inuit, better able to talk to provinces, better able to talk to territories, and better able to talk to regional and municipal governments. And in all of those instances, this science should lead us all to better decisions, better interconnectivity, and better protection.
Okay, great. I'd also like to get your thoughts briefly on the National Historic Site side of the program and how you're resourced right now. I know that work has happened over the last few years on improving condition reports, the condition of built heritage in Canada, and how is the agency poised right now to continue advancing the work that's needed on the federally held, and particularly the Parks Canada held, National Historic Sites, federal heritage buildings, classified and recognized FIBRO buildings, those types of areas. Are you able to move forward some of the work that you need to do on improving conditions?
Thank you for the question. We obviously take very close note of the report that this committee did on cultural heritage, and so we're following that very closely. A couple of concrete things, I think, that, no pun intended, on the protection of cultural heritage sites. First and foremost, we're responsible for some of the most iconic cultural heritage sites in the country, and the monies that we've had in recent budgets have allowed us to do several $1 billion worth of work to protect that. I think that's setting a solid example across the country. But in terms of the work with other jurisdictions, we are not only working with them on maintaining, at least at a modest level, this year's cost-sharing program. The Minister has written to her colleagues across the country following the report that this committee did, and I will actually be attending a meeting of Deputy Ministers and Ministers in Yellowknife very shortly, and will be speaking to this topic as well. So it is something that we're taking very seriously, and we will look forward to continued work on this and know that we have more to do.
Okay, yeah, it's wonderful to hear that you'll be there at the meeting. I have also met personally with a number of colleagues at the provincial and territorial level, and they felt that it was very important to have the minister responsible for built heritage at those meetings. So I'm delighted that you'll be attending. Mr. Holman, I'd like to turn to you for a moment. We have Bill C-69 that's working its way through the House. And just wondering if you could provide a comment or two on the impact that Bill C-69 may have on the required spending authorities of your agency that you're responsible for 2018-19, and are you poised to move forward?
Okay. Budget 2018 did provide for up to $259 million of additional resources for the agency over 5 years to transition to the new Impact Assessment Agency of Canada, to enhance Indigenous outreach and engagement, to effect the early planning aspects of the bill, to work with proponents, provinces, Indigenous groups, other interested parties, to build greater certainty up front of the process. And those monies will flow over the period of 5 years as laid out in the budget, and the first part of that will come to the agency later in the year through supplementary estimates.
Okay, thank you. And I've lost the chair, so I'll keep going. I wonder, I'm not sure who's responsible for the Species at Risk program, but I'd put a question to the parliamentary secretary, and in 10 seconds he gave a fairly tight answer. I just wonder if there's any further information that you can provide. And the question essentially was, how will Budget 2018 transform the way that Canada protects our species at risk?
Thank you. The budget, as I noted, represents a really significant investment in protecting nature, both through protected areas and species at risk. And recognizing, as Daniel noted, the benefit for both species of protected areas and particularly in areas of high biodiversity value where connectivity is key, but as well in terms of measures to protect critical habitat. So what the budget will allow us to do is work in partnership with provinces and territories, landowners, industry, Indigenous groups to focus on priority places, to take a more place-based approach to species at risk, for example, in the south of the Divide area in southern Saskatchewan, but as well look at critical anchor species that are in areas that touch on many different species at risk. And an example is caribou, where we are working in partnership with provinces and territories, industry, local communities, Indigenous groups.
I'm just going to have to end it there because we're running over. Sorry.
Protection of critical habitat.
I hate doing that, but once it gets past a little bit, I got to cut you off. One thing I always do and didn't do earlier was introduce members that aren't normally at the table, and just wanted to recognize Stephanie Kuzi and Michael Levitt for joining us today. And so now we're over to Monsieur Godin.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. En premier lieu.
Thank you, Chair. First, I'd like to thank our witnesses, ladies and gentlemen, for being with us today. We're sorry about the first half of the meeting, which was much more emotional and partisan, but I know you're above all that now, and know that the Conservative Party has a lot of respect for public servants. So I have a simple question for Mr. Watson about Parks Canada. In the budget, it says that there will be an increase of $83.6 million. If I've understood the minister's presentation correctly, there could be a possibility of having new parks. Did I understand that correctly? Yes. Thank you very much for your question. We are working on a system that could cover all ecoregions in Canada. We have not finished this. This project won't be done overnight. It'll take some time. But yes, we're continuing to work on new parks, particularly in the southern Okanagan region, as the minister mentioned, and also in the Northwest Territories. We are having conversations with other regions of the country as well. Thank you very much, Mr. Watson. In the Quebec region, if ever you're looking for a place, Canadians there don't have access to Parks Canada parks because there are no parks in that area. In the riding of Port-Neuf-Jacques-Cartier, there is the Parc du Fort-Cartier et du Manoir. It is located between two localities there, and we'd be happy to welcome you there. If ever you'd like to visit it, communicate with us. There's the National Park in Mauricie, which is wonderful. Another question about what Mr. Lucas said. In the budget, there's $14.5 million for the implementation of the Pan-Canadian framework. What are you going to do with this funding? There was an interprovincial meeting with the federal government, and 14.5 million, that's for the management and the coordination. Is there cost sharing with the provinces? Can you tell us exactly what you're going to do with this 14.5 million? Yes, this funding is for our employees' work to move ahead some measures of the Pan-Canadian Framework, as you mentioned. It includes the use of funding for adaptation with regard to the impact of climate change and the development of framework for electricity and research and development for regulatory frameworks for transportation. If I understand correctly, you're going to add employees that will follow up or be responsible for instructions with provinces? We're working closely with the provinces and territories by respecting their jurisdiction, by eliminating and reducing carbon for electricity. We have an agreement with Nova Scotia. And we're also working with other provinces such as Saskatchewan. These aren't transfers for provinces. Yes, thank you. Now, in the action plan for contaminated sites that was established in 2016 for 15 years, there's information that says that the department is on the right track to achieve the targets. Now, sorry, I'm trying to read my notes here. Can you explain why we have to increase the budget for 2018-19 for this file? I know this is specific, but if we're on the right track, perhaps we could prioritize other files, other components for environmental sustainability. Why are we paying particular attention to this program? As you said, we have a long-term commitment to eliminating contaminated sites for the fiscal year 2018-2019. This includes an increase in funding for the closure of the Pacific Environmental Center. Thank you. Now, a million-dollar question. There are 3 divisions at the Department of Environment. So there's 3 agencies. If we give you $4.5 billion extra, would we be able to accelerate reaching our targets that the Conservatives established? Will it make it easier to meet our targets? I'd like to start by saying that the government decided to invest in our departments and others, such as Infrastructure Canada, to contribute to the reduction of greenhouse gases. For example, there's a green infrastructure program, and we're investing in nature at a historic level, $1,300,000,000. But if you had another $4.5 billion, what would you do?
Stop that from
Sorry,
happening.
Madame la Présidente.
No,
Merci.
no, it's
Merci.
okay. I'm just trying to mind both of your interests over there. Mr. Rogers.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thanks, panel, for being here. In 2017, the Government of Canada announced the $2 billion Low Carbon Economy Fund. To date, authorities have been sought in the supplementary estimates 2017-2018 to allocate $115 million to the Leadership Fund component of that fund. Can you update the committee on the state of the discussions with the provinces and the territories regarding the fund's bilateral funding arrangements or agreements?
So that work has proceeded significantly. A number of announcements were made last December and some subsequent to that in terms of the partnership agreements and projects with provinces and territories. We now have those projects concluded, plus signed bilateral agreements with Ontario, New Brunswick, PEI, Alberta, and British Columbia, and agreements in principle just waiting to be signed with Newfoundland and Labrador, Nova Scotia, Nunavut, NWT, and the Yukon. And we're making significant progress in terms of concluding that agreement with Quebec. Manitoba signed on to the Pan-Canadian Framework only in February, and we're having very good discussions with them towards that. So very significant progress in partnership with provinces and territories that is resulting in a number of programs across the country, in particular in the area of energy efficiency, stored carbon and forests, and support in that for reducing emissions in the transportation sector.
Just a question, of course, Newfoundland and Labrador, how close are we to an agreement?
My understanding is the agreement has been concluded in principle, and we're just waiting for signature of it.
Okay. So how do you ensure that the funds that will be transferred to the provinces are spent in a way that supports the implementation of the Pan-Canadian Framework on clean growth and climate change?
So in addition to the projects being proposed by the provinces and undergoing rigorous review, including expert review of emission reduction calculations, we have the strong accountability through the transfer payments to the provinces to ensure that the funds are utilized as intended, and work through partnership committees with each province and territory to oversee the implementation of the programs. So it's a great example of partnership, respecting the leadership of provinces and territories and working closely with the Government of Canada. Yeah.
I appreciate that, Madam Chair. That's done for me, yes.
Anybody else? It's okay. Have you got any questions? You've still got time. Go ahead then, Mr. Amos.
I'd like our officials to take us back to 2012 and the budget bill, which incorporated holus bolus, a new environmental assessment law. What officials testified before any standing committee at that time?
I would simply note that it's before my time at the agency, and so I don't have at the tip of my tongue an answer to that. I could provide one later if it was the committee's desire, Chair, or perhaps others might have.
I mean, I believe Deputy Minister Lucas was with NRCan in a senior position at the time. Perhaps he recalls. If not, I would accept a written response to that question, because I think it is in the public interest. We've had significant discussions with our counterparts opposite on the apparent democratic sham of a process around Bill C-69, and I would like to make sure that the record is clear as to what the process has involved with C-69 and what the process involved with the budget bill. I believe it was C-38 at the time.
As Ron indicated, in terms of specific witness testimony, we'd be happy to provide that.
Okay. Thank you. I'd like to return to Mr. Watson around the issue of the building out of the Indigenous Guardians program. What has been the nature of engagement of the of Indigenous peoples in the development of this program, and where have there been, if any, points of friction in this process?
Sure. Thank you for the question. Very quickly. So in the case of the program that was announced in last year's budget, that was actually developed by Indigenous people, and so it was a proposal that was brought to government on that front. We've been working very closely on the administrative end of that. I think it's fair to say that there are no administrative conversations about government programs when you come from the outside that go exactly as the way that you wish they would if you were coming from outside government. You always wish that it would be faster and easier. However, we are working hard to make sure that the money actually gets delivered for the purposes that it was required for, because it's a very important purpose. And so I think what is common there, though, is that everybody wants to see it succeed. Everybody wants to make sure that youth contribute a significant amount in this, and everybody wants to make sure that the elders, who are a source of enormous wisdom and knowledge, have the opportunity to pass that on to the youth who will be a part of this process.
Thank you, Mr. Ross.
Excellent. Madame Kuzi.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Mr. Lucas, it's public knowledge that the carbon price is set to be $50 by 2022, but in a March 30th, 2017 National Post article, it was revealed through an access to information request by our party, the Conservative Party, the official opposition, that to meet climate target objectives, the price of carbon would in fact have to go up to $300. So that's another $250. That's a significant increase by 2050. So that's not a lot of time. That's only another 28 years. And I'm looking to you, Mr. Lucas, to confirm that these discussions are in fact taking place, that the pain for Canadians in terms of carbon pricing and the price of carbon and the lack of transparency by this government in an effort to inform Canadians as to the price of carbon to allow them to prepare and change and consider what this means for their lifestyles and families continues to be hidden. So, Mr. Lucas, can you please confirm that these discussions are taking place in regards to a $300 price on carbon by 2050? Thank you.
What I would indicate is there is no target for 2050. There's no target set for Canada. The government has worked with provinces and territories, Indigenous people, business, civil society, and all Canadians to develop a plan which has a variety of measures that are transparent. Our modeling in terms of how those measures contribute to meeting the target in 2030 is transparent, based on what was agreed to with provinces and territories at the first ministers' meeting in December 2016. An element of that agreement was a commitment to undertake a review of carbon pricing in 2020 and then again in 2022. And it's those elements that are the basis for our work going forward with our counterparts in provinces and territories, in consultation with business, Indigenous groups, civil society, based on those transparent assumptions and the detailed information provided for all regulatory and other measures as part of the consultation process.
So based upon documentation you have seen, should Canadians prepare for a carbon price of $300 by 2050, yes or no?
As I indicated, Canada has not set a target for 2050. We focused the government with provinces and territories in Vancouver in March 2016, affirmed a target and worked together through a very open consultative process to develop a plan for how to attain that with those assumptions in terms of the nature of the measures and their modeled impact provided in the reporting to the United Nations as well as in reporting to Canadians on an annual basis.
Got to end it there. Thank you very much. Time for statements and questioning witnesses is now expired, and now I'm going to call each vote separately. So we're ready to vote. Shall vote number 1 under Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency carry? Sorry, you got to get back to your seat. Okay. That's okay. Now we're all ready. Okay, now we'll start again. My apologies. Shall vote number 1 under Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency carry? All those in favor? Okay, that's carried. I need hands up, please, if you don't mind. I could call the, I mean, once we've got a majority, it carries, but I could certainly call the negative if you would like me to do that. So let's do that again. I was gonna say, let's get it done. Okay, shall vote. We're very well practiced now. Shall vote number 1 under Canadian Environmental Assessment Agency carry, recorded vote. Ready?
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Madame Cussy. Mr. Bouleris.
Okay. Shall vote, that did carry. Shall vote number 1 under Department of the Environment carry, recorded vote.
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Ms. Cussy. Monsieur Bouleris.
That did carry. Shall vote number 5 under Department of the Environment carry. Recorded vote. Okay.
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Ms. Cussy. Monsieur Bouleris.
Okay. So that was, okay, vote 10. Shall vote number 1, oh wait, are we on the, okay, sorry. Shall vote number 10 under Parks, under Department of the Environment carry? Recorded vote.
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Ms. Cussy. Monsieur Bouleris.
Okay, that did carry, and just for the record, I just want to make sure the previous vote did carry as well. I think I said that. Vote, shall vote number 1 under Parks Canada carry, recorded vote.
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Ms. Cussy. Monsieur Bouleris.
That did carry. Shall vote number 5 under Parks Canada carry, recorded vote.
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Ms. Cussy. Monsieur Bouleris.
That did carry. And finally, shall I report the votes on the main estimates to the House? Recorded vote.
Mr. Aldag. Mr. Amos. Mr. Levitt. Mr. Fisher. Mr. Rogers. Mr. Fast. Monsieur Godin. Ms. Cussy. Monsieur Bouleris.
Yes, he said yes. That was unanimous. Thank you. No, wait, sorry. Who said no? You said no. I'm so sorry. My apologies. I was so focused on getting Madame Cussy sorted. Okay, so that did carry. So I'll be reporting that back. It could be as early as tomorrow morning. The next meeting is Thursday, and it's consideration of the draft report built environment study. And our analysts just want to have a few words because it may make it. I think we're going to need a bit more time. Go ahead, Alex, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, so we spent some time.
Mike. Put your mic.
We spent some time updating the report based on your suggestions last week. The report, the bold version of the report, French and English, will be ready tomorrow, end of day. Yeah.
So there's a fair bit of change because we did ask for quite a bit. So they spent a lot of time getting that all worked in. So you're going to see quite a bit of change in the report and more recommendations. So given that we're getting it tomorrow late, I thought we might want more time to go through it and be really ready to do the recommendations. So I'm suggesting that we do not have a meeting on Thursday. We start again on this on Tuesday. Gives us lots of time to digest what's coming at us. It's because of translations, which is why we won't get it until late tomorrow. It's up to you. Go ahead, Joelle.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, j'aimerais vérifier avec l'analyste.
I just want to check with the analyst. In terms of the presentation, will we have the wording of the first version with the changes that will be with track changes? Or will they be in bold or underscore? Yes, the changes will be underscored, particularly things that were added. We had to reorganize things a bit in terms of given the number of changes. You may not see all the paragraphs that were moved, but you will see all the text that was added, clearly identified. Great, thank you.
Not meeting Thursday, and we'll start again the following Tuesday, next week. You good? Okay, thank you very much. That's passed, and end of meeting. I was going to thank our guests, but they're gone.